Take a walk up and down the aisles, and it's easy to see why so many of our shoppers are confused. Local has been one of the biggest trends in supermarketing in decades. But picking up a product that's marked local, that's made in Mexico, is bewildering to many, as are foods that are grown in California marked local and sold in New Jersey. Localize is a new Canadian startup that wants to maintain some integrity in this unregulated market in order to help retailers capitalize on the local food trend. It's a platform that includes a product evaluation process and a shelf labeling system. Localize first evaluates individual food items, then assigns a score showing just how local that product is, accounting for factors such as where ingredients were grown or processed, where the item was produced, how sustainably it was produced, and who, if the product is owned by a local company or a member of Big Food thousands of miles away. The score is then posted on the shelf with a QR code that, when clicked on, shows the detail behind the score. Do shoppers really want this much info on what is and what not local? Well, CEO Megan Deere reported to newhope.com that one unidentified local retail chain saw a quick jump in profits with nearly a 10% increase in dollar sales for the products that it had the localized labels for. New Hope writes that participating grocers have even been able to increase their prices incrementally and by small amounts, say 1 or 2%, once the program is established, according to Deere, because people really come to value these local offerings, and the greatest impact is in the grocery category, center store. The biggest jumps we see are in center store, the packaged items, she said. Wow. That's eye-opening information that could help supermarkets stave off the continuing decline in center store. Localize is currently in more than 300 stores in Canada and expects a growth spurt within Canada and plans to expand to the U.S. The story and need goes well beyond local. Larry Olmsted, Forbes columnist, has just released his new book, Real Food, Fake Food, that explores just how common consumers are fooled in thinking what foods they buy are the real thing, versus a less expensive knockoff selling at the real food price. Kobe beef is just one example that he shares. When in Japan, he discovered the premium price steak and found it on U.S. menus when he returned. He ordered it at a few restaurants and found that it looked and tasted very different. He did his research and found that at the time, the importation of Japanese beef was actually completely banned by the USDA. There was no Japanese beef in the U.S. at all. So all these places that were claiming to serve Japanese beef were not serving Japanese beef, which is why it didn't look or taste right, he says. In the book, he also cites that statistically more than half of seafood labeling is incorrect and that the fraud is happening in the restaurant or at the retail store, since he says the FDA just did a study determining that 85% of the seafood was correctly labeled at the last point of wholesale distribution, meaning before it went to either a restaurant or a supermarket, or before it reached the consumer-facing point of sale. To gain confidence of the consumer, transparency and truthfulness is the key.
Conagra Foods. With brands like these, we can't help but smile. Conagra Foods. Food you love.